Okay, being 6:30, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Can you take a record of the attendance, please? And approval of the agenda moved by
Judy.
Seconded by Ian.
moved by Judy. Moved by Judy, seconded by Ian. Anything on the question? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Conflict of interest disclosure, if any. Okay, there isn't. So tonight, first of all, we have with us Pat Whipple, who is sitting in for Mayor Pleadwell. Mayor Pleadwell's wife had surgery today, and so he's unable to make it tonight. But he's asked Deputy Mayor Pat Whipple to attend on his behalf. And I'll quote from his email that he just sent about 10 to 6. He said, "I also want to reinforce a strong support belief of the proposed use of Fredericton tourism and Ignite for achieving objectives set forth on the commission. This will help our new community residents and the entire region going forward." So that's the comments that he made. So I thought I should read them. So this meeting tonight, 2 weeks ago, we had a meeting and we discussed in great detail and at length about the two proposals, one for economic development and tourism that's mandated by the province. We left that meeting with the understanding that the mayors would go back to their communities and discuss it with the communities and come back tonight to vote on each of the two motions that will be put forth. And I assume that the members of the LSDs would have also done the same and contacted Brittany, who on behalf of So going forward, I think I can find it here. I'm kind of confused tonight in my office because it's not mine. It's the one I built for me, but my wife took it over. So everything is lost. The first one we'll talk about tonight, I think, is the tourism one. And the motion will be that the board agrees in principle to the retention of Fredericton tourism for the regional delivery of tourism promotion services as described in their presentation during the special board meeting of July 22nd, 2022, contingent on the development of a mutually accepted service agreement. So that will be the motion. So if somebody could move that motion, we'll bring it forward. Jeff,
don't we need a discussion on this?
You'll have discussion during questions. We've discussed it at length, so we'll have
this wasn't, I thought we were going to, this was an approval that we still had concerns and issues to bring forward.
And you can raise your concerns during questions after the motion's put to the floor. So is there a mover?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Moved by Stephen Sharp, seconded by Leo. Anything on the question? So there's your opportunity. Jeff, your hand's up.
Yeah, the biggest issue I have with it is there's no oversight for the Regional Service Commission or any of our communities within Fredericton. So right now, Fredericton holds the purse strings for our economic development and our tourism. And I feel that's very concerning, especially from the paper that was brought out by the city of Fredericton on the values and assets of people around their community.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want those addressed as we go along, Mr. Chair, or?
We can, if you would like.
The decision that we're making this evening, hopefully, is a decision as to whether we accept Fredericton tourism as the delivery mechanism for tourism promotion in the capital region, and we're making a decision as to whether Ignite as the delivery mechanism for economic development in the capital region. We are 6 weeks behind schedule in terms of making that decision. And I would submit that we don't need to do it this minute, but I would submit that it is very important that we make a decision at this meeting this evening. The motion indicates that the two decisions that are to be made are decisions as to whether we accept those delivery mechanisms, and then subject to bringing in an acceptable service level agreement, MOU, agreement, call it whatever you will, which will identify exactly what those two organizations will do, as we can best describe it at this time. It will identify the deliverables that are expected from the work that they will do. And they will also identify in that MOU, we will identify the KPIs, the manners in which we're going to measure the performance and whether the service providers are meeting the objectives as they were laid out in the MOU. So I think it's very important that we recognize that we're not at the end of the game here. We're not at the end of the day. We're making a decision, hopefully, on service providers for two important services to be delivered by the RSC. A lot of the details around that will be incorporated in the MOU or SLA or whatever we want to call it. And as I've indicated at previous meetings, I'm certainly open to forming a committee or two committees, one to work on each of the two services, to work at developing a service level agreement that's going to be acceptable to the group. And once it's acceptable to a working committee of representatives of these entities, then we can take it to the full board for a final approval on moving forward. Thank you.
Can I rebut or have a question with regards to that answer though?
Sure.
The issue that I have with it is that I've been asked to sit on committees and groups to represent the rural community of the Upper Nashwauk and yet been able to. So it all depends on who's sitting at the table and who's creating the MOUs and has the final say, which is going to dictate what's going on. And so far what's happening is a top-down approach. And I don't feel easy going into these final agreements without making sure we have a good representation from everyone in every community.
But as I just stated, tonight is not a final agreement for an SLA to move forward with Ignite or Tourism Fredericton. Tonight,
no, but if you're the only one,
Yeah.
if you're the only one sitting on the board and making all the decisions, then it is, because we won't have a say, just like we haven't had a say up to date.
Dave Morrison, do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I have some comments. Talked to my council just a couple of days after we adjourned our last meeting, and our council votes not to accept it as it is. The reasoning behind that is, has there been any other, has it been checked out what it would cost to do in-house or by any other provider? As far as my understanding, that only Fredericton Tourism and Ignite was approached, and we're spending an awful lot of money, millions of dollars, and we haven't even checked out with anybody else. Like, it's a lot of money. You know, why can't the capital region or region 11 do it in-house? And again, there's no accounting for where these figures came from. They're just figures that were thrown at us, and we have no idea of you know, you're talking millions of dollars, and again, we don't know where these numbers are coming from. They're just tossed out. We don't know what kind of research was done. No business plan, you know, nothing put forward in the budget to where these numbers are coming from. So that's two of the reasons. But of course, the biggest one is to check to see if they can be done in-house or a hybrid of both.
Thank you, Dave. Maurice, do you have a response? Or
well, we had the same issue in the Western Valley. I mean, the Western Valley, they were like adamant. They could do it better. They could do it far better than Ignite. And we said, okay, fine. You put together a proposal and Ignite will put together a proposal. Brought it to the board, and it was like the New York Yankees playing against the Sandlot team. I mean, it was just no comparison. And I'm not being critical of the folks locally, but they had no expertise. They had no experience, certainly relative to the 10 years that Ignite has gathered. That's the reality. There's no economic development agency that probably comes close to being as effective and as successful as Ignite has been in terms of delivering economic development services for the areas for which they were being compensated and funded. And we saw that in the report that we circulated prior to the last meeting that David Campbell had produced. So I don't, you know, we can go back and start to question whether Ignite is the best or not. But frankly, I don't think there's any other organization in the capital region that could even begin to rival Ignite. Insofar as doing it internally, so are we suggesting then that we would spend somewhere around the kind of money that we're spending now, and fund the creation of how many positions that we would create, and we would ask the new CEO to go out and find half a dozen or 8 people who have the depth of experience and expertise that exists at Ignite? I don't know that that's so easily done. It's easily said. I just don't know how easily done it is. And insofar as Tourism Fredericton, I would submit that Tourism Fredericton is probably the best RDMO that exists in the province of New Brunswick at the present time. I think their success is unrivaled. And frankly, sure, we didn't go to anyone else because there's no one else in the capital region that could do this work anywhere near the kind of capability that Tourism Fredericton could do it. And I think we're frankly quite fortunate that Dave Seabrook and his team are prepared to expand the breadth of work that they do across the entire region, commit a part of their funding to complement the funding that would come from the entities in order to produce a tourism promotion budget in the capital region that's going to be in excess of $2 million. I think that's a pretty successful win. And I'll remind you as well that Brett and I have spent a lot of time on this. We've waited 3 meetings to come to a point where we could make a decision. And we were told that we were 40% under budget of what Envision St. John is getting in Region 9. And so there were arguments put forth as to why we should increase the budget for here. And Brett and I said, no, it's not acceptable. It's too high. So we leveled off at a budget that we think, combined with the cost for the other services, is going to bring the increase in taxes to about 2.5 cents. 2.5 cents, frankly, is what we're talking about in total, which will give us $2 million for economic development and $2 million for tourism promotion for the capital region, which I think, frankly, is pretty good value for money.
Well, I certainly respect your opinion, but again, we don't know where these numbers are coming from. Like, where does the 620,000, like, how does that add up? I haven't seen any numbers where it comes from, and the same idea of the 1.6 million on economic development.
Well, you want to talk those numbers? We'll do that. 620,000 represents about a third of what the city of Fredericton is putting into the tourism budget at the present time. So they're putting in 3 times what we're asking the entities to put in, right? So they're plus Fredericton walked into this expecting they were going to pay less for economic development. They're paying 10% more than they were going to be paying than they're paying at present. So what we've tried to do is we've tried to balance it out so that everyone would be able to see something in it for themselves. And as I think has been suggested, we need to be looking at this as an investment, not only as a cost.
Thank you. I appreciate your answers.
Ian Kitchen, please.
Yes. I think we're putting the cart before the horse here. You want us to have to vote on something where we're not sure what we're getting. NACWIC has invested money into tourism and economic development, and I have nothing against Ignite or Fredericton Tourism, but in order for me and my council to vote, we need to know exactly how it's going to be, how our community is going to be treated, how we're going to get the resources through through Ignite and Fredericton Tourism. I know we had that presentation, and I know I talked to Larry Shaw today, but I wish they would have come out with, this is how it's going to happen in the region. Because right now we're putting money and you're not going to take more money. And the only answers I ever got before were, well, you can keep doing what you want to do, but you're going to have to support both. And I, with a good conscience, can't vote that way until I know more. So at the present time, I'm going to be voting against the motion.
Thank you, Ian. Judy Wilson-Sheep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Council for the Village of New Maryland wholeheartedly supports the principles of municipal reform and the efficiencies we believe it can bring to ensure vibrant and sustainable communities in New Brunswick. Council for the Village of New Maryland also wholeheartedly supports a regional approach to economic development and tourism, an approach that, if done well, could be beneficial to all municipalities, capital region, rural districts in our region, and for the province as a whole. Council for the Village of New Maryland believes that before we can agree to a costing formula for the tourism proposal that Fredericton Tourism is putting forward to members of the Regional Service Commission 11, we need to know what our residents can expect as a return for the cost. That is, we need to see a MOU that specifies what each member of the Regional Service Commission 11 can expect for services on their proposal before we can agree to a cost. As a municipality, we would never enter into a cost arrangement like we are being asked to support at the Regional Service Commission 11 without first knowing what our residents can expect for a return on their hard-earned tax dollars. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Shi. Pat Whipple, please, and your microphone's off, Pat.
I thank you. I'm just wanted to reiterate what Derek had said. With our meeting last week, we all agreed that this would be the most beneficial for us, for the village, and for Arcadia as a whole. And we feel that we will get bang for the buck kind of thing, that we're not spending, I don't think, a lot for what we hopefully will get out of it. The only thing that came from the meeting was that we really want to make sure there's representation from the regions within that group, so that we make sure we can come back to Arcadia to say this is what's being done for our village and our tourism and economic development. So we will be voting for this, and with hopefully some processes on the way to make it beneficial for us.
Thank you. Excuse me, Stephen Sharp, please.
Mr. Chair, just to confirm a couple of things. So the Maurice, the 2.5 cents that you mentioned, is that the combined estimated tax increase?
It is.
Thank you. We had a meeting last evening with Waterboro, Upper Gagetown, Hampstead, and Cambridge. So our 4 LSDs are in favor. However, it is strongly, I guess we hold a strong opinion that if we're going to increase the taxes at 2.5 cents, then there should be a corresponding reduction on the provincial side, because they're not going to be providing those services any longer. So in principle, we support it. On the tax side, one of the mandates we have is to keep our taxes as low as we can. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, just to ensure that we're all on the same page on that, the province will continue to be active in these areas. The Department of Tourism isn't going to fold up because the regional service corporations are going to be doing tourism promotion. It's to complement what's being done at the provincial level. So the suggestion that the province should reduce the taxes because we're now going to be doing that work at the regional level just doesn't work. It's going to happen as well in the area of economic development, whereby the province is going to continue carrying out a role in the areas of economic development. Meanwhile, the regional service commissions will be doing work in economic development at the same time in a complementary fashion to what's being done at the provincial level. I just wanted to make sure that there was some clarity on that.
Thank you, Maurice.
Thank you. Excuse me, John Williamson, please.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to say that I did have issues with the presentations last week, mainly because it was a lot to digest, and I think I might have said that during the meeting. I will say that having one would have been enough, and they should have probably been split, but it is what it is. I was also struggling because I wasn't really comfortable with what was being presented in the context of this board not being the board that will be ultimately responsible to deliver these new mandated services. So there will be a new board on January the 1st. And I took the opportunity after last meeting to try to figure out what the appropriate role might be for this board, recognizing the new board will be coming in with very different entities, very different looking board. Some of them won't even be here and represented some that are here won't even be on for sure. And others that will be on January the 1st are not even represented here today. So when I looked and tried to figure it out, I, as far as I can tell, and I haven't been told otherwise, that the new board will be responsible as a mandate to develop a strategic regional plan come January the 1st, and we'll have until June 30th of 2023 to actually adopt one. And then the next part of that mandate is that the board will implement the plan that they've approved. And so it makes sense to me that that's the role and responsibility of a new board, and the time given, the 6 months given to develop it makes perfect sense. And then you implement it. So what seemed to be presented at the last meeting was that we have skipped the plan and we are immediately going to implementation as a board that has a life probably of 4 months at the most. And I know that I was concerned about that, and I reached out to Brett and tried to get some clarification, and also it went to Maurice for some I guess clarification, and I was provided with a copy of the guidelines, and I think it's the reference that Maurice made to we're 6 weeks behind because the department has set very hard deadlines for certain deliverables, and this is the one that we're talking about this evening, actually two, but the guideline states that we have to have as the outgoing board this finalized, not just a plan, but also the delivery of the service before the new board even takes office. And to me, that is fundamentally wrong. And I do not feel comfortable with it. I think it's inappropriate. I do also note that the guidelines within the department and the stated objective of those guidelines is to set up the new mandates so that on January the 1st, 23, both staff and newly elected boards, underline newly elected boards, will be able to take on the work and then provide input into the planning and delivery of these new mandated services. So for me, it's totally inconsistent with what I'm seeing in the new act, the revised act, and also in the objectives for the guidelines that were provided. I certainly can see that we could properly as this board work to have a plan developed and start that planning process so that a new board would have the opportunity, head start at least, to review it, and then if they're in favor of whatever that plan is, take the following steps to implement it. So my concern is the prematurity of this and the inappropriateness of this decision by this board. I would certainly support a arrangement with Ignite, the city, or even a third-party consulting firm to develop a plan. And then we would all have something to look at, and then particularly the new board would be given the opportunity to review it and decide on what it wants to do or not do. So I guess in conclusion, I'm for those reasons, process reasons, if you want to call them that, not going to support the motion.
Okay, if I may, Mr. Chair, I'll address that. What we're deciding tonight, hopefully, is the manner in which those services would be delivered. Subsequent to tonight, we agree to a service level agreement, which gets taken to this board for final approval, which incorporates what's going to be done, what's going to be delivered, how it's going to be measured, and how much money is going to be in the envelope. Okay? Then come January 1st, the first thing that Ignite and Tourism Fredericton, assuming they're selected as the delivery mechanisms for these two services, They carry out an extensive engagement process within the region in order to develop a strategy and a game plan specifically going forward to address the issues, concerns, and opportunities that exist throughout the region. That gets taken to the board at that time for a final blessing or for modifications before execution and implementation takes place, likely sometime next summer. If their plan, if the game plan can be completed by April, gets taken to the board of the capital region in April of next year and is blessed by the board at that time, or alterations are made, it can begin its execution, presumably sooner than July 1st. So the July 1st deadline is simply to say, look, let's give 6 months as a minimum in order to develop that game plan. And then beyond that, execution and implementation takes place, and it's all done under the responsibility of the new board.
If I could just follow up, Mr. Chair. What I'm confused about, Maurice, is your description that the new board will have some opportunity to actually implement the delivery of those services in a different way than the agreements that will be in place with Ignite and City of Fredericton.
No, what I'm suggesting, John, is that the SLA will define, to the extent that we can define at this moment, what will be done, how it will be measured, and what the KPIs will be. Subsequent to that, a more detailed, and I want to underscore the word detailed, where Ignite, as an example, will go and visit every entity, probably more than once, within the RSC, and they will consult and engage with them, get input from all of them, and try and put together a regional economic development strategy that they feel comfortable taking to the CEO, and who will then feel comfortable to take to the new board for a final approval. It's a staged approach, and the period that we are in now is a transition period. And we're in a transition period so that we can define the delivery mechanisms and develop as well a service level agreement that will go with how those agencies, or whether it's done internally, how those services are going to be carried out.
I'm totally confused, only because, well, I'm probably missing something still.
Okay.
However, what you described is that what we're talking about negotiating with Ignite and the City of Fredericton now is not really binding agreements for any length of time, because the new board, pardon?
No, they are. They're binding agreements.
Okay, so then
Insofar
Maurice,
as they are binding
Maurice,
agreements.
I really have to ask then, if they're binding and they're long-term and there's a lot of money involved, how is that not going to tie the hands of?
But they are subject to the definition of a strategy that will be done in the first 6 months of the year.
Okay.
And that strategy will end up coming to the board for final approval. And it is against that strategy that they will be carrying out the execution of the economic development services in the region.
Except that those are already defined and subject to an agreement that's binding on the board.
But as I said,
I still am not convinced.
But John, as I said, they are defined to the extent that they can be defined now. Ignite doesn't know what the priorities are in Harvey. They don't know what the priorities are in another in Gagetown, to the extent that they want to know them. And that consultation and engagement to define the specific game plan that they will execute will be done in the course of the first 6 months of the year.
It's the implementation part that I think is problematic here because of the agreements that are being contemplated now.
Okay.
Dale Moore, you have a question or a comment?
Well, I just had a comment. I met with our council and we talked a long time on it too. And small municipality, we are, and there are a number of small municipalities around the province of RSCs. And the concern of our council was to what benefit would we be able to receive by implementing and voting yes on this agreement. like I say, we are very small. Our council just couldn't figure out how that we would benefit. So that's some of the things that we would like to know before we can vote yes on something like this.
Okay, thank you. Leo, you have a comment or question?
Yeah, I have more of a comment than anything. They seem to be arguing here about the delivery of service. That's all we're asking for. The city of Fredericton does tourism. I don't see anything wrong with them operating it, and I don't see anything with Ignite. But the bottom line is these two companies or these two persons, be it the city and Ignite, still answer to the board. The board is what's running this, and the board has been dictated to give us these services, and we have to pay for them. Now, I can really complain because I'm in what's going to be Rural Ward 1 or whatever you want to call it, and I'm going to be stuck with parts of Chipman, parts of Nackwick, parts of Stanley, and tourism isn't going to do nothing for Noonan. Tourism is a delivery of Ignite won't do much for us, but I understand we're going to have to pay the same as everybody, but I put it on our web page. I've invited anybody that wanted to talk to me about it, come talk to me. But the way I see it, these two are the best to deliver the service that we're obligated to supply, unfortunately, but that's the bottom line. It's we have no other choices for delivery of these type of goods. It won't benefit us, but in the long run, maybe we'll have more residents in our area. That's my opinion. So I will be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Kate, excuse me.
Thank you. And Maurice, thanks for the clarification that you provided, because I was hearing the concerns around the call and appreciating. I think what all of us want is to know that we are going to have a voice in how this all unfolds, and it feels, in a way, it feels premature. We're agreeing to what the organization is going to be. We're agreeing to how much money we're going to spend. We're agreeing to what the high-level mandate KPIs are without going into the details. But then, as you were talking, it made me think of our police force is about ready to embark on a strategic plan, right? So we know we use the Fredericton Police. They're our police. We know how much it costs us, which it's a lot of money, but they do a strategic plan. What we don't, the deliverables, like what that service is going to look like in the city of Fredericton, varies every 3 to 5 years, depending on how often we do the strategic plan. And it's at that opportunity that we're able to provide all the details and say, these are the research gets done. They go out, they do the research, what's happening in our community, look at the data, share it with council, we'll share it with the public. And then out of that, we formulate the strategy. They set what are the KPIs with the strategy. So I guess I'm drawing a little bit of a parallel. Yes, we're committing. What we're being asked to do is commit to the organizations and commit to how much it's going to cost. But as to what it's actually going to look like in our region, we're still going to have the opportunity to provide that detail as a Regional Service Commission board, correct? That's just a nod. Okay. Because so I think when I look at it that way, it's a very different kind of a commitment, right? Like we're not tonight. We know, I think that, the point was made, like Leo made the point, we've got to have these mandated services. Like there are two that we have to deliver. All we're committing to is the money, who's going to do it, and sort of a high level service agreement. The details will come after when they have the opportunity to go in and do that work, and we can hold their feet to the fire to make sure they deliver what we want. And I would say, Nackwick, I wouldn't want to be double spending in tourism either. I would be demanding, if it's Fredericton Tourism, I would say Fredericton Tourism is the regional service provider here. I expect you to be delivering these things for Nackwick. So I hope that we do get to that level of detail with each of the communities, because I think that that's what we're looking for here as a region. Support the whole region, but also in so doing, be supporting the communities. But I have to say, I think we can get there. I think we can get there with the details, with the service level agreements. I get really, really nervous. And I think this is my nonprofit background. I get really nervous when I hear about creating new organizations. The expense of creating a new tourism entity, a new economic development entity. I mean, we're looking at the cost of a service. What if we're having to look at all the back end costs? We haven't talked about what it actually costs the employee, the payroll deductions, all the employee costs, the back end costs of these organizations. If we had to factor that in to creating new organizations, put that cost on top of the cost of delivering a service, it would be astronomical. I know in the nonprofit world, we try with all our might now not to create new nonprofits. Instead, nonprofits collaborate, nonprofits expand mission so that they take on more as opposed to creating new, because then I think that's messy business that wouldn't interest me. And so I guess I'm more comforted now having a better understanding of knowing that all of us can be individually served when we're looking at those agreements. So if we just think that committing to a group, paying it, high level what they're going to deliver, but we get to work on the details after the fact. So thanks. I'm sort of thinking out loud with all of you, but I'm maybe hoping my thinking out loud helps provide some clarity.
Thank you. Mike Chamberlain, please. You're on mute, Mike.
Yes, thank you. Just a couple of comments. I agree with Kate on the subject and most others. I think that to create a new, a new system under, to run community development and tourism would be totally out of the question. I mean, these two have been in the business for a while, and I have no problem with that. I have the problem with why this decision is being made now. Half of us aren't going to be here next year, and maybe less than that. And it's just, I just have a problem with that these decisions should be made by the new board, starting on January 1st. So maybe Mo would like to comment on that, why we have to get going on this. I know it's been mandated, that we've been told we have to, but there was no pushback. So that's my major concern, Mo, and I'm just wondering what you would have to say about that.
Well, thanks for that, Michael. Look, there have been, obviously, let me step back. I mean, this kind of reform hasn't happened for 60 years, and it's pretty obvious to everybody, I think, now why that is the case. The government consulted extensively, as we know, last year. Everyone who wanted to have a voice had a chance to have a say. At the end of the day, they put out a document that said what we heard. They then put out a document that indicated the white paper. They actually modified some elements of the white paper and put forth a fairly aggressive timeline to get things done. They hired a number of facilitators to assist with the communities and the regional service commissions to define the delivery mechanisms for these new services and hopefully conclude with some service level agreements that can be in place so that these services can begin to be delivered, obviously with the strategic development plan activities starting in January of 2023. I can appreciate, I've heard at board meetings in the Western Valley, I've heard at previous board meetings here, I've heard at board meetings in St. John area where I'm now doing some work as well. There are a lot of concerns about cost, and I get that, I really do. But these are mandated services, so they will be delivered by the RSCs going forward, and they'll be delivered in one of three ways, either by the RSC, either by a third party, or a combination of both. And in our humble best assessment, Brett and I felt that the best approach was to look at Ignite and to look at Tourism Fredericton. And we still believe, and I still believe, and I know Brett does as well, we still believe we have the two best delivery mechanisms for these services in the capital region. The questions of timing and the fact that it seems rushed and all of that, well, frankly, we're 6 weeks behind. So if you feel it's rushed now, you must have felt it was really rushed back for June. We're hopeful that we can make some kind of decisions here this evening. And then we're going to try and move as quickly as we can to get an MOU or an SLA in front of committees that we're hoping to establish, and then take those to the board so that the board can make some final decisions on those service level agreements. And then the new boards will come into place, oversee the development of the strategies and their execution. And as was mentioned by a previous speaker, there'll be an opportunity for the new board to weigh in on any number of elements of the work that's being done on a go-forward basis. So we're in a transition period, and the timelines have been set. And frankly, we're just simply trying to live by the timelines as best we can. But thank you for your comments.
Thank you, Mo. But my only concern was I had no problem with the transition, you know, the new entities and all of this. It's just this, what we're voting on tonight, you know, these decisions, I don't know why they couldn't have waited for the new board. So thank you.
Well, okay, I mean, obviously, I didn't have much say. I had no say actually in those. It's been prescribed, and everyone is operating with the same rule book. I mean, RSC in the Capital Region is no different than in Kent or in St. John or in Southwest New Brunswick or the Western Valley or Edmonton or any one of the regional service commissions. We're all operating with the same playbook.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Erica Barnett, please.
Thank you. My council met and discussed also what's been proposed, and a lot of my issues and my council's concerns are echoed by a lot of others that I heard today. It comes down to us agreeing to something without knowing what we're getting for return on our investment. I mean this with no disrespect, but we're talking about pennies, but the pennies add up. So it's pennies about tourism, pennies about economic development, pennies about other areas that we're talking about amalgamation, and they add up to larger figures. So who's covering the cost of that? When government talks about capping LSDs, tax rates, and doing a gradual increase, is local government prepared to come to the table and cover the costs associated with all these increases over the next coming years? And I'm not sure if that's accurate or not. So I'm not sure how we vote on something like this without having all the facts on the table. So that's my concerns and my council's concerns. So if we're saying that tonight we're picking Ignite or Fredericton Tourism, but as far as the finances goes and the fees goes and the MOUs goes, that is coming, is that what we're talking? Or are we voting tonight also on the costs associated with these two entities?
We've had presentations from Ignite and Tourism Fredericton. In their presentations, they incorporated budget projections for what they felt and what Brett and I felt was a reasonable amount of money. Excuse me. And so, you know, we're working on the basis that those presentations have been put forth and would move ahead as they've been presented. And we've circulated, Brett has circulated what the cost would be for each of those two services to all of the entities within the capital region, so that you know exactly what the cost will be. The overall increase, by the way, is 2.5 cents for all of the services, not a penny here and a penny there and a penny here and a penny there. Just 2.5 cents for all of the new services that are going to be, and 2.5 cents is more than zero. Obviously, it's more than one and more than two, but it is 2.5 cents, where some regional service commissions are going to have cost increases, I think, that are much higher than 2.5 cents. That being said, tonight, to answer your question, Mayor Barnett, we're looking for a decision on the service providers for economic development and for tourism promotion in the capital region.
Thank you. John Williamson, please.
Well, just picked up on a couple of comments that have been made since I last spoke. And I will perhaps start with the comment that Maurice just made. I think it's more than what you just stated, Maurice, because the motion, if I'm remembering it, refers specifically to the proposals. And the proposals were fairly detailed as to what the providers would actually provide and the costing of all of that. So I think it's quite specific the way the motion's reading. And that ties into something else I picked up on, and I didn't disagree with Kate's, I guess, concern over whether we're at a high level with these agreements. And if we're at a high level and it's more looking like strategic planning of some sort, and it gives full flexibility to a new board to make final decisions as to the high level work that's been done by, let's say, Ignite and the city of Fredericton, then that's different from what I'm seeing or what I thought I saw in those proposals. The motion is fairly specific and is linked to specifics, not only as far as services provided, but also costing. And I'm just wondering how you're going to cost something when you don't even know yet exactly what that high level plan is going to look like and might require. The other thing I noted was that Maurice, you had said that it's a beginning for the new board. I am not agreeing with that based on the proposals and the motion.
Okay, thank you, John. Jeff, you have a comment? You're on mute, Jeff.
I apologize about that. Yeah, we already pay into MB Tourism to look after our area. We already, CBDC looks after our finances, our businesses, everything. So are we now saying the CBDC is going to be dissolved and that portion? Like I still believe we have options. We have great organizations already looking after us. So are we already saying they're inferior? They need more funding, or we're just creating another layer of services that we don't need is my question. And we've only had 2 weeks. It takes me longer to pick out a lawnmower than to sit down and discuss and create something that our entity is going to have to endure for 5 years. So I feel this is rushed and feel like we need some more information and higher level conversation around this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jim. Any other comments? Mayor Powell.
Yes, I'd just like to say that the town of Oromocto, we believe in collaboration and unity with the communities and all the identities in RSC11. And there's no dispute that Ignite and probably the city of Fredericton are the best ones to go with. Council's issues is that we're paying, asked to pay too much, and it's a 5-year term is too much. It's a long time to be locked into something that you don't know. It's like buying a house you've never seen before. And so we're not comfortable with that. We're comfortable with the providers, but Oromocto had his own planning. They had his own tourism. Where's that go? We've got people that are working in tourism. Now, where do they go? And we know what we get. And I know what we got from Ignite. Absolutely nothing. So, but I'm willing to pay, and we're willing to pay to go with Ignite, but not to the extent of what they set the rate for. We paid before in Ignite what we could afford. Now they're setting a rate that's 3 times as much as, more than 5 times as much as what we can afford. And the same with tourism. So our council disagrees too. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other, excuse me, any other comments? So the motion, if there's not, the motion on the floor is for the tourism sector. Just a second, let me get it out here. And the motion that was put forth was that the board agrees in principle to the retention of Fredericton tourism for the regional delivery of tourism promotion services as described in the presentation during the special board meeting of July 27th, 2022, contingent on the development of a mutually acceptable service agreement. So that was a motion. Mayor Rogers, you have.
Yeah, thanks, John. I was going to abstain from the vote on the tourism provider. Just, I don't think there is actually a conflict, but I don't want there to be any perceived conflict. So I would just be more comfortable removing myself from the vote on the tourism.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so you heard the motion. It was moved and seconded. You've heard the discussion and questions on it. I think we can now move to a vote. based on the motion. So I'll ask for those in favor to say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
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 Mr. Chair, can we just do a call here?
Yeah, I
Roll-
think I
roll
think
call.
that's best.
Yeah, roll
would've
call,
been better.
please. Yeah.
Roll call.
All right,
Yeah.
I'll call names and Wendy's gonna do the tally for me.
Okay.
Dave Morrison,
Nay.
Bob Powell,
No.
Peter Morrison,
Nay.
Ian Kitchen,
Nay.
Mike Chamberlain, Mike Chamberlain, is he there? Oh,
Yeah, you're.
gotta,
Sorry, Kelly. Yes,
yes.
yes. Mike
Uh,
Chamberlain.
Pat Whipple,
Yes.
Jeff McFarland,
Nay.
Judy Wilson She,
Nay.
David Duplessis,
Yes.
John Bigger,
Yes.
Erica Barnett,
Nay.
Stephen Sharp,
Aye.
Keith West,
Nay.
John Williamson,
Nay.
Dale Mowry,
Nay.
Rita Winslade,
Nay.
Bev Forbes, Bev,
You're on mute, Dev. How about thumbs up or thumbs down?
there you go.
Nay.
Nay? Thank you. And
Nay.
Leo. Leo
Yay.
Pulliam. Yay.
Yay.
Okay.
Is that everybody?
I'd say it's nay.
Motion's defeated, yes. Okay, thank you. And so the second motion.
Mr. Chair, would it be possible to have the vote count?
Sure.
Yeah,
Yes, the vote count was 6 yays and 12 nays with 1 abstention.
Thank you.
okay, the second, excuse me, the second motion will be on economic development. That the board agrees in principle to the retention of Ignite for the regional delivery of economic development services as described in the presentation during the special board meeting of July 27th, 2022, contingent on the development of a mutually acceptable service agreement. We've heard the motion. Is there a mover? Moved by Stephen Sharp, seconded by,
I'll second it, David.
seconded by David Duplessis. Anything on the question? All those in favor, and we'll do a roll again, please, Kelly.
Okay. All right. Judy Wilson She,
Sorry, I couldn't get my hand up far enough. This is on discussion on the motion, correct, Mr. Chair?
Okay. I'll allow it because you couldn't get your hand up.
Thank you. We take the same stands as we did for tourism. Council for the Village of New Maryland believes that before we can agree on a costing formula for the economic development proposal that Ignite Capital Region is putting forward to members of the Regional Service Commission 11, that we need to know what our residents can expect as a return for the cost. That is, we need to see a MOU that specifies what each member of Regional Service 11 can expect for services under the proposal before we can agree to a cost. As municipality, again, we would never enter into a cost arrangement like we're being asked to support at the Regional Service Commission 11 without first knowing what our residents can expect in return on their hard-earned tax dollars. So we will be voting nay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, Judy Wilson, she, I guess you were the first vote and you were nay.
Right.
Okay. Sorry, Kelly, taking your job.
Tim, continue on. Okay. David Duplessis,
Yes.
Bob Powell,
Nay.
Leo Colleen, oh, I think we may have lost Leo.
No,
Did we?
there.
No,
Leo?
he's there.
Yeah, I'm here.
There
Sorry.
it goes.
Yay. We're voting for in favor.
Peter Morrison,
Nay.
Dale Mowry,
Nay.
John Bigger,
Yay.
Kate Rogers,
Yay.
Stephen Sharp,
Yes.
Jeff McFarlane,
Yay.
Bev Forbes, okay, maybe he's the one we lost.
Yeah, I don't see him.
Okay, he's the one we lost then. I thought I heard someone chime out. Keith
Oh.
West,
Oh,
Bev
he's
just
back.
came back.
is Bev back? Okay.
Yeah.
Are you ready to vote, Bev? Can you hear us?
You're on mute, Beth.
Okay, maybe I'll continue on and circle back to
Yeah.
Bev.
Yeah.
Keith West,
Nay.
John Williamson,
Nay.
Rita Winslade,
Nay.
Ian Kitchen,
Nay.
Mike Chamberlain,
Yes.
Dave Morrison,
Nay.
Pat Whipple,
Yes.
Erica Barnett,
Nay.
and Bev. Are you still with us?
He's on mute.
Here we go. How do you vote, Bev?
Nay.
Nay?
Nay.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody.
So the vote is 8 yeses and 11 noes.
Okay, I declare the motion defeated. Thank you very much. Okay, now an update on local government reform, please. Brett and Maurice.
There's really not a great deal to update since our last meeting of a couple of weeks ago. Really, I don't know that there's a great deal more. We're getting closer on finalizing the new CEO position and individual who will be assuming that position effective September 6th. We'll have more details as to who that is and so on in the coming days, probably in the next couple of weeks. Other than that, I think that's really about it. We expect some further information on weighted voting, which I know will also be a controversial issue, but there is going to be, we understand, some more information available on how weighted voting is going to work. Expect that information to be available probably by the end of August. So that'll be something to look out for. Brett, is there anything that you can think of top of mind on ESIC or on any of the other services? Assume you're there, Brett.
Yeah, sorry, sure I am, Maurice. The as far as ESIC is concerned, we've executed the MOU and we're currently advertising for the position of a community development officer. It's the one remaining mandate, the beyond cost sharing, is regional transportation. And we have been working with Urban Rural Rides to come up with a proposal that we'll be able to bring up with bring forward to the working group and advisory committee and then on to the board. I expect that'll take place fairly quickly once I'm back from vacation. I'm currently on vacation in case.
Me too. I hear you.
Yeah. So hoping to make some headway there in the next 2 or 3 weeks and have a package to bring forward to the board for review at that time.
Okay, so I think that's it, unless there are questions.
Judy? You're on mute, Judy.
There,
Judy,
I
you're
was
on.
trying to, I was trying to get it off. Just a question that no one's brought up. Since both motions were defeated, where do we go from here?
Brett and I'll have to circle back when he's back on holidays, and you know, it's you couldn't have forecasted what was going to happen or how it was going to turn out, because obviously you have to present the information and people respond in the fashion that they wish. And so once Brett's back from holidays early next week, you and I'll sit down together and we'll have to sort out how we're going to move forward.
Thank you.
Leo, please.
The only one little thing I have about the whole thing is me sitting in a little local service district out here. No one has approached, and I mean no one. And we have no idea what our rural community, be it 2 wards, who's going to represent them, who's going to vote for them, number one, how you're going to run the election. None of that kind of information. Although, yeah, we're okay. None of that information has been passed out. We haven't been involved in any of the process that has happened so far. And now we see planning going into Sheffield and Majorville, which will be part of my area, be it ward, be it A or B, whichever. And they've got signs posted everywhere. There's no development, no progress, right? Or no progress, no development, whatever they're advertising, because planning and advisory is certainly telling Majorville and Sheffield that you are now one unit. And well, there's more to it than Majorville and Sheffield. Noonan is also involved. Lakeville Corner is involved. And as I said, parts of Chipman, rural LSD, Stanley, part of Stanley. None of us have been informed on anything. So just so the rest of the board knows, and we as LSDs have 6 votes on this board, we will be reduced to 1. So that's all.
Thank you. So no other comments. Okay. Excuse me. So next item on the agenda is closed session section. So we have to have a motion to move to closed session, please.